Hey guys, it's Clara from Online Fabric Store. Today I'm making this faux leather vinyl handbag. If you're not a fan of leather, vinyl is a great alternative. It's less expensive and can be easier to work with. This handbag has a pocket on the front, a pocket on the back, a zipper compartment, as well as some other interior pockets. So let's get started. The materials you'll need are 1 yard of vinyl, 1 yard of lining fabric, upholstery thread and regular thread, a 9-inch zipper, scissors, a seam ripper, clips, pins, a fabric marker or pencil, heavy stabilizer or cardboard, a Teflon presser foot, a zipper foot, a magnetic snap, 2 1¼ inch D-rings, contact cement, which is optional, a hand sewing needle, and an iron. Print, tape, and cut out the pattern pieces. Trace the pattern pieces onto the vinyl. Cut out 2 of the outer top, the outer pocket, the outer flap, and the strap loops. When choosing a vinyl fabric, you want to make sure it's not too thick for a regular home sewing machine. I'm using Nisimi Persuasion vinyl, which is 28 ounces per square yard. It's best to get a sample, fold it in half twice, creating 4 layers, and test sewing it with your machine. You also want the vinyl to be soft and pliable. Also cut out 2 pieces of the vinyl that are 2½ by 30 inches for making the strap. With your lining fabric, cut out 1 piece of the lining gusset in the lining pocket. Cut out 2 pieces for the outer pocket lining, the front back piece, and the zipper extender. You'll need 4 pieces for the lining zipper compartment. I'm using a medium weight drapery fabric for the lining, but you can use just about any light or medium weight fabric. For thinner fabrics, you may want to use a fusible interfacing on the back. Put the zipper foot on your machine. Fold the zipper extender pieces in half and iron. Then fold the ends in ½ inch and press again. Sandwich the ends of the zipper between the fabric and sew across about 1/8 inch from the edge. Do the same thing for the other end. You can unzip it a little so the tab isn't in the way. Place the zipper on the top right edge of one of the zipper compartment pieces. Place another piece on top with the right side down so all 3 edges line up. Pin or clip in place. Sew close to the zipper. You may have to move the tab partway through. Repeat for the other side of the zipper using the other 2 pieces of fabric. Iron the seams on the front and back. Take one of the lining front-back pieces and place it on the zipper compartment with the right side facing down and pin or clip. Use a long stitch length like 5 mm to base the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Fold the lining pocket in half with right sides facing and sew across the longer side. Iron the seam open. Turn it right side out and iron the piece in half with a seam at the bottom. Use a fabric marker to draw the vertical lines that are on the pattern piece. Place the pocket on the other lining front back piece about 1 3/4 inches from the bottom and pin. Sew on the lines, backstitching at the beginning and end. Sew across the bottom of the pocket. Use the gusset pattern piece to mark the dotted line on the edges of the gusset fabric. Center the side with the zipper compartment on the edge of the gusset with right sides facing and clip. Sew between the marks with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Line up the sides, clip, and sew. Clip the pocket side of the lining and the gusset together on the bottom and sides. This time I'm going to leave a large opening at the bottom. Sew down the sides and stop about 1 inch after the corners. This opening is for turning the bag right side out after sewing the outer vinyl and the lining together. Trim the seams and the lining is done. Place the pattern on one of the flap pieces. Poke a hole through the snap marking with a pin and mark the center dot. Line up the metal backing on the dot and mark the 2 slots. Use a seam ripper to cut slits just big enough for the prongs to go through from the front side of the fabric. You can use a heavy stabilizer or piece of cardboard to reinforce the snap on the back. Cut out a piece a little larger than the snap and cut the slits. Slide it onto the back, followed by the metal support. Use your fingers or pliers to bend down the prongs so they lay flat. Repeat for the other side of the snap on one of the outer pocket pieces. Before you start to sew, set up your sewing machine for vinyl. We recommend using a Teflon presser foot because vinyl tends to stick when fed through the metal presser foot and needle plate. If you don't have one, you can use matte tape on the bottom of your presser foot. I'm using nylon upholstery thread because it's stronger and thicker than regular thread. Thick thread looks best for top stitching. You may need a larger needle, like a size 16, for this thread. Use a new universal needle or one made specifically for vinyl. You'll want to use a longer stitch length than usual with vinyl because having lots of needle holes close together perforates the vinyl, making it more likely to tear. I'm using 3.5 mm and for top stitching 4.5 mm because longer stitches look nicer. Test out your stitching before starting. The tension will have to be adjusted because of the thickness of the fabric and thread. If you use a normal tension, the knots will show on the back of the fabric and the stitches might look loose. Set it so the stitches look uniform and the same on the front and the back. Line up the top edges of the outer pocket and the outer pocket lining with right sides facing. Clip the fabric together instead of pinning because pins will create permanent holes in the vinyl. Sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Fold the lining fabric back and top stitch about 1/4 inch from the seam. On the outer pocket pieces, fold the vinyl 1 inch above the lining seam and clip. Change the stitch length to 4.5 mm whenever top stitching the vinyl. Stitch 1/4 inch from the edge. Sew slowly and carefully when top stitching vinyl so you don't have to rip out stitches and leave visible holes. Sew another line of top stitching between the first and the edge of the vinyl. This is mostly decorative, but it also helps to flatten the fold. Repeat for the other outer pocket and lining pieces. Next, sew the flap pieces together. Cut the seam allowance off the sides and bottom of the pattern piece and trace it onto the back of one of the flaps. Clip the two pieces together with the right sides facing. Change the stitch length back to 3.5 millimeters. Sew on the marked line. Trim the corners and cut closer to the curved point. Turn the flap right side out. Push out the corners and edges and clip. Top stitch 1/4 inch from the edge. Top stitch again 1/8 inch or less from the edge. The curve can be tricky, so I like to use the hand wheel instead of the pedal to have better control. Next, sew the outer pocket piece with the snap and the outer top piece together. Line up the bottom edge of the outer top and the lining with right sides facing. Clip and sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Top stitch on the lining like before. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but sandwich the flap in between. Place the outer top piece with the right side facing up. Line up the bottom edges of the flap and outer top piece. The snap on the flap should be facing down. Align the edge of the outer pocket lining facing down. Clip the pieces together and sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Top stitch on the lining. On both pieces, fold the pockets so the lining matches up and clip in place. Place one piece on top of the other with right sides facing. Clip the sides together. Sew down the sides with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. You may want to use the hand wheel here for the thicker parts. Clip the bottom together and sew. At this point, you can turn it right side out to see if you want to glue the seams open. The seams don't lie very flat, so if you want them to look crisper, you can use contact cement on the side and bottom seams. Turn the bag wrong side out again. Trim down the side seams of the lining. Brush on contact cement so a 1 inch area from the edge is covered. I'm also gluing just the top of the side seams. Let it sit for the specified time on your contact cement, which is 20 minutes for me. Fold back the edges so they stick. Turn the bag to the other side and do the same thing. Pinch the bottom corners together so the seams line up and clip in place. Sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim all the seams to about 1/4 inch. Turn the bag right side out. On the back of the two smaller pieces, mark a center line. Fold both sides to the middle line and clip. Top stitch 1/4 inch from the edges. Top stitch again 1/8 inch from the edges. Slide a ring onto each piece and sew the ends together. Take the two long pieces and mark a center line. Sew the ends together with right sides facing and a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Open the seam and sew down each side. Slide on the rings, then sew the other ends together. Open the seam and sew down each side. Fold one edge to the center line and top stitch 1/4 inch from the edge all the way around. When top stitching, it looks best not to backstitch unless it will be hidden. Do the same thing for the other side. Bring the threads on the front to the back with a hand needle. Cut off the loose thread. Place the rings on the seams and clip in place. About 1 inch from the ring, sew across, then turn and top stitch 1/8 inch from the edge. Stop when you get 1 inch away from the other ring. Sew across and down the other side until you get back to the beginning. Make sure to leave extra thread at the ends. Tie the thread together and bury them between the layers. Cut off the loose thread. Line up the bottom edge of the strap loop with the top of the bag so it's centered on the side seam. Clip in place and sew 1/4 inch from the edge. Repeat for the other strap loop. Fold the top down 1.5 inches and clip all the way around. Top stitch 2 lines around the top. When sewing over the straps, use the hand wheel so the needle doesn't break. Make sure to leave extra thread on the tails to tie and bury afterwards. Place the outer bag inside the lining so the right sides are facing. Fold up the raw edge of the vinyl and clip to the edge of the lining. Sew all the way around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pull the bag through the bottom opening of the lining to turn it right side out. Hand stitch the opening in the lining closed. Tuck the lining into the bag and it's complete. The pocket in the back is perfect for easy access to your phone. The front pocket is great for your keys, and it's a perfect size for your iPad. Thanks for watching this OFS project.